They say trust is built slowly and destroyed in seconds. For me, it took exactly 12 words. You free tonight? I booked the same hotel as last time. That message wasn't meant for me, but it showed up on my husband's phone like it had been waiting its whole life to burn me. He'd left his phone charging beside our bed, and I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I was just turning off the alarm for the next morning when that message flashed across the screen. My stomach dropped before my brain could even process what I'd read. Hotel? Last time? Who was she? I'm Elena, 37. Married for 9 years, and for most of that time I thought I had something real, something worth fighting for. We met when I was still in law school. He was charming, quietly ambitious, thoughtful in the way he'd pull my chair out or leave a coffee on my dashboard before big exams. He'd stand in a crowded room and still find my eyes. I told my friends he was my calm in the chaos. But calm can hide a lot of things, like secrets, affairs, lies dressed up in neat, familiar smiles. He always said he needed space. Time with the guys, a few weekends to catch up with old friends. I gave it. I believed in boundaries, in not being the clingy wife. I even defended him when my friend Bree raised an eyebrow. Don't you think it's weird, she asked once, that he's always out of town and you never know where he's staying? I laughed it off then. Now I want to go back and shake myself. Because the night I saw that message, something in me shattered, but something else woke up. I didn't confront him, not right away. I couldn't. He walked in 10 minutes later, towel around his neck, smelling like eucalyptus from his gym. He kissed my forehead and said he felt better after the steam. He asked if I wanted tea. I said yes. I even smiled. Because that's what you do when you realize your reality is about to collapse. You smile. I barely slept that night. I stared at the ceiling with that message burned into my eyelids. The woman on the other end, who was she? Was she the only one? How long had this been going on? How long had I been loving someone who was lying to my face with ease? By morning, I was changed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even feel sadness. What I felt was colder, sharper, the kind of pain that numbs you into clarity, the kind that whispers, "Get up, this is war." People like to say karma will take care of cheaters, but I've learned karma moves slow, and I don't. If he wanted to pretend nothing was wrong, fine, let him. If he wanted to keep gaslighting me, calling me paranoid, sure, I'd play along. But not because I was weak, because I needed time to gather every lie, every receipt, every excuse. I wasn't going to yell or plead or ask him why. I was going to make sure he'd regret underestimating me. And when the moment came to confront him, I wasn't going to fall apart. I was going to watch him do that. Because this wasn't just about infidelity. This was about betrayal, disrespect. Years of emotional erosion I hadn't even seen until the mask slipped. And now? Now I was done being the calm wife. I was going to become the storm. The thing about betrayal is, it's never loud. It starts with silences, glances, sudden distance you can't explain. Looking back, it wasn't just the business trips or the random overnights with the boys. It was the way he started flinching when I touched his arm, the way he left the room when I laughed too loud, how he stopped asking me about my day, my dreams, my life outside of what I made for dinner or how the laundry was going. It was death, by 1,000 little cuts, and I'd been bleeding for years without even noticing. The morning after that message, I opened our shared laptop. I don't even know what I was looking for, maybe more messages, some sort of paper trail. What I found was far worse. A folder titled Bills 2022, but filled with receipts. Hotel stays under his name. Spa appointments for 2. Dinner. Reservations with notes like anniversary special, rose petals, corner table. Only, none of those anniversaries were mine. I kept scrolling. Flights to Chicago, Nashville, even San Diego. He said he was with his college buddies, but I knew all of them. None of them lived in those cities. That's when the truth hit me full force. He wasn't cheating once. He was cheating consistently, with planning, with purpose. like it was just another business deal he'd mapped out in Excel. I slammed the laptop shut and sat there, breathing like I'd just run 5 miles. My hands shook, but I wasn't crying. That surprised me. I thought I would. I thought I'd curl up in a ball and scream. But what I felt instead was humiliation. Not just because he'd betrayed me, but because I'd built my life around someone who clearly didn't think I was worth honesty, or respect, or even basic decency. I thought of all the birthdays I spent alone, the nights I stayed up waiting for him to text just to say he landed safe, the conversations I tried to start, about intimacy, about drifting apart, that he always dodged. And still, somehow, he made me feel guilty for even bringing it up. He'd say I was being dramatic, insecure, that he was just busy, that I needed to trust him more. And I did. God help me, I did. That's the part that burned the most. Trust wasn't just broken, it was mocked. I didn't just feel cheated on, I felt played. Every moment I poured into this marriage, every time I softened my voice, tucked away my own needs just to keep the peace, I realized I'd been doing it for someone who was already gone. But here's the thing, he didn't know I knew. And that was my greatest advantage. I played my part for days, maybe even too well. I laughed at his jokes. I listened to him talk about work like nothing had changed. I let him hug me, hold me, touch me, and every second made my skin crawl. But I needed time. I needed a plan. Because this wasn't just about heartbreak. He had access to our joint account. My name was on the mortgage. He knew all my passwords. If I made the wrong move too fast, he'd bury me in manipulation and walk away with everything. I had to be smart, careful, strategic. He'd turned our marriage into a lie. I was about to turn his life into one big, messy, public truth. And I'd make sure he watched it all unfold with the same smug smile he wore every time he kissed me goodbye to meet the guys. Let him think I'm fragile. Let him think I'm scared. Let him think I'll stay. Because soon, I was going to become the woman he never saw coming. This wasn't just about a marriage anymore. It was about my life, my time, my self-worth, my future. And he thought he could casually destroy it, all while sipping whiskey at rooftop bars with women who didn't even know his wife existed. The more I uncovered, the deeper the hole he had dug for me. I checked our savings. Account the following morning, $18,400 gone in 4 months. All travel expenses and networking events. He wasn't just lying to me emotionally, he was financially bleeding me dry. Our home? My name was on the deed. But he'd been meeting with a realtor. I found the emails. He planned to sell it, our house, and move closer to the city. Alone, without ever telling me. It was all drafted and pending my signature. He said he'd bring it up when the time was right. Right for who? For me? Or for the woman he booked hotel rooms with? But the moment I stopped crying, I started counting. All the ways he'd dismantled my world, slowly, patiently. And the most horrifying part was, he was confident I wouldn't fight back, because I wasn't the woman I used to be. He knew that. And maybe that's why he thought he could get away with it. You see, years ago I was bold, ambitious, sharp. I had just passed the bar. I used to believe in justice, in fairness, in speaking up. But life, marriage, and yes, him, they chipped away at that piece of me until I barely recognized the woman in the mirror. I gave up job offers to move for his career. I passed on promotions because they didn't work with our plans. I scaled back on everything. My wardrobe, my personality, my voice. He got everything he wanted, and I became small. So when I say this betrayal mattered, it's not just because of the cheating. It's because he looked at my silence and mistook it for weakness. He thought I was too tired, too worn down, too domesticated to strike back. He forgot who I was before I became his wife. And now? Now it wasn't just about heartbreak or humiliation. It was about reclaiming her. The woman who didn't flinch when men lied. The woman who didn't beg to be respected. The woman who would burn bridges if they tried to cage her. This mattered because I mattered. Because somewhere between cooking his meals and covering for his emotional absence, I lost sight of the truth. I wasn't lucky to have him. He was lucky to have me. And he threw that away like I was disposable. I wasn't going to let him walk away from this with my money, my home, and the satisfaction of knowing he got away clean. He didn't just cheat on a woman. He tried to erase a force of nature. So when people ask why I didn't just leave quietly, why I didn't pack a bag and cry on a friend's couch, this is why. Because he planned to erase me. And instead, I was going to rewrite the ending. I wasn't just going to leave. I was going to leave a trail of shattered illusions in my place. This wasn't going to end in heartbreak. It was going to end in justice. And for the first time in years, I felt awake, alive, dangerous. He wanted out. He was going to get his wish, but not before I showed him exactly what it feels like to be blindsided by the person you underestimated most. If he thought he was the only one capable of playing the long game, he was about to learn the hard way. He married the wrong woman to betray. I didn't scream. I didn't confront. I didn't even change my tone. Instead, I smiled harder, kissed him deeper, let him believe nothing had changed, because while he was sipping cocktails and texting his little secret rendezvous, I was assembling a case. You see, I'd kept records over the years, not intentionally, but out of habit. Receipts, emails, joint statements. And now they were a gold mine. Proof of how much I'd contributed, how much I'd compromised, and how much he was about to lose. Step 1. Secure my accounts. I went to the bank during my lunch break, quietly removed his access to my personal checking, and rerouted all notifications to a private email. I opened a new account under my maiden name and started transferring small amounts at a time. Nothing that would raise suspicion, just enough to start carving out my own financial oxygen. Step 2. Track his movements. He never logged out of his Apple ID on our shared iPad. Amateur move. I could see his location, read some of his texts, at least the ones that came through iMessage, and even see his appointments. That's how I found out about Tasha, the one from the hotel text. She wasn't just a fling. She was regular, familiar, a pattern. He met her twice a month, always at the same upscale hotel downtown. I screenshotted everything. His calendar entries, their check-in times, even the Uber receipts he accidentally charged to our joint card once. He didn't even bother to delete them. Step 3. Gather my evidence. I went through every financial statement, flagged each suspicious transaction, and created a document titled Infidelity and Misuse of Funds. Sound clinical? It was meant to, because this wasn't just emotional anymore, it was legal. I spoke to a divorce attorney, a woman I used to admire from afar in law school, fierce, smart, and merciless when it came to protecting women like me. She reviewed the documentation and nodded. "You have a case," she said, "and a damn good one." But I wasn't done yet. Step 4. Set the trap. I needed something that would break the illusion he'd built for everyone else, because to his family, he was the devoted husband. To our friends, the career man stretched too thin. No one knew what I knew. So I planned a dinner party, just the inner circle, his brother, a few mutual friends, and of course, him. I told him I wanted to reconnect, to show appreciation for all his hard work. He smiled, pleased with himself, told me I was sweet. If only he knew. I picked a Friday, the same day he usually met Tasha. I'd already seen the hotel on his calendar. I knew what time they were meeting. I knew what suite they'd reserved. But he didn't know I had called the front desk and canceled the reservation. Didn't know I left a note for Tasha at the front desk under his name that read, "Sorry, she found out. Don't contact me again." And just to be sure, I copied a few of his more incriminating texts and mailed them to our own house in an unmarked envelope addressed to him. I watched him open it that morning. I watched the blood drain from his face as he read what he had written to another woman. He looked at me, confused, panicked. I just blinked and said, "Everything okay?" He nodded. Good, because now all the pieces were in place. I wasn't going to scream at him over dinner. I was going to make him unravel, quietly, publicly, in front of the very people who thought he was untouchable. He handed me the script. When he lied, I was just editing the ending. That Friday evening, the table was set. Candles, wine glasses, soft music in the background. You'd think it was the opening scene of a romantic dinner. But I was setting a stage for destruction, not dessert. He walked in late, as expected, wore his favorite gray blazer and that smug smirk that used to make my knees weak. Now, it just made me nauseous. He leaned in, whispered, "Thanks for doing this," and kissed my cheek. I smiled. Of course. Every guest was seated. Wine was poured. Conversation flowed around the room like nothing was amiss. He laughed, joked, told a story about a fake meeting he'd supposedly had earlier that day. I almost admired his ability to lie so easily. Almost. Then, halfway through the meal, I stood up and tapped my glass. "Sorry to interrupt," I said, "but I wanted to share something tonight." He looked up, still grinning, still unsuspecting. That's the thing about men like him. They believe they are too clever to ever be caught. That women like me are too soft to ever retaliate. But I had learned something in the weeks leading up to that night. Silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. I held up the envelope I'd brought, his texts, his hotel receipts, a photo of him with Tasha exiting the spa 2 towns over. All neatly printed and paper-clipped like courtroom evidence. "Do you recognize this?" I asked him directly. He froze. The table fell silent. Chairs shifted. Forks paused mid-air. "What is that?" he asked, his voice already cracking. "This," I said, "is everything you thought I'd never find." I handed the envelope to his brother. He took it cautiously, began reading, and then blinked hard, looking up at me with wide eyes. One of our friends gasped. Another muttered, "You've got to be kidding me." I kept going. "You said you were catching up with friends. Turns out your definition of catching up is naked massages and late checkouts." He stood up, suddenly red. "Can we talk, privately?" "No," I said, calm, steady. "You lost the right to privacy when you dragged me through years of lies. You didn't care about my dignity, so don't ask for yours now." He stammered, tried to reach for my hand. I pulled it back. "Sit down," I told him, "and let me finish." He did, because what else could he do? I continued, voice strong, unwavering. "You emptied our joint account for hotel rooms and dinners while telling me we needed to cut back. You almost sold our house without telling me. You made me feel like I was the problem, when the whole time you were living 2 lives. I turned to the guests. "I won't waste anyone's time. I just wanted people to know the truth. I've filed for divorce." "The house? It's staying in my name. The lawyer says you'll be lucky to leave with your socks." He stood again, angry this time. "You ambushed me." "No," I said. "You ambushed us the moment you chose betrayal." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I let the silence settle around the table like dust after an explosion. Then I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time, I saw fear. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. Because he finally realized I was no longer the woman who would take his lies quietly. He left that night humiliated, exposed, and alone. Me? I stayed and finished my wine. His brother stayed too, quietly leaned over and said, "I'm sorry. I had no idea." I nodded. Neither did I, until I did. And once I did, everything changed. This wasn't just revenge. It was reclamation. Of I. My voice, my worth, my story. He chose lies. I chose to make them public. And the fallout? That was still coming. The next morning, I found a note on the kitchen counter. One last attempt at damage control. "Elena, I made mistakes, but you didn't have to humiliate me like that. We could have worked through it. Please, let's talk." It was handwritten. Not because he cared, but because he knew I wouldn't answer his calls. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about humiliation. It was about consequences. For years, I bent, folded, accommodated, silenced myself, diminished everything I was so he could feel bigger. And now he wanted grace? He had no idea how much of it I'd already given. So I left the note where I found it. I didn't need closure from a man who never gave me honesty. Instead, I opened my laptop, finalized the divorce paperwork, and hit send. It was done. But karma wasn't. A week later, I found out Tasha had blocked him. She didn't like that he lied about being separated. Turns out she wasn't. In on the game. Just another pawn in his fantasy. He called her the one in a text I read. Said he felt free with her. She ghosted him. He tried to get back into the house once. I had already changed the locks. Then he tried to access our joint retirement fund. My lawyer had frozen it. He thought he'd walk away with money, a mistress, and the upper hand. Instead, he walked away with a duffel bag, a ruined reputation, and the echo of his own lies catching up to him. I didn't post anything online. I didn't drag him publicly beyond that dinner. I didn't need to. Truth has a voice that never stops whispering, and his silence was louder than any confession. Friends stopped calling him. His family, at least the decent ones, sent me messages of support. His brother even offered to testify if things got ugly in court. But they didn't. I had the receipts, the dates, the trail. He signed the settlement without a fight. I kept the house, the car, the savings I'd quietly secured, and more importantly, I kept my dignity. But this isn't just a story of revenge. It's a story of returning to yourself. Because I had to confront something harder than betrayal. I had to confront me, the woman who stayed too long, who believed too deeply, who ignored red flags because she wanted the story to be beautiful. And now? Now, I live in peace. My mornings are quiet. My laughter is real. And when I look in the mirror, I no longer see someone trying to be enough for someone else. I see someone who knew when enough was enough. He told me he was catching up with friends. What he was really doing was losing the only person who ever truly had his back. And me? I caught up too, with my strength, my fire, the woman I buried to keep a broken man comfortable. So here's the truth he never saw coming. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of staying with someone who made me feel lonely in the first place. And now that I'm free, he can keep his lies, his ego, and his empty apologies. I'll keep everything else. Because in the end, I didn't just expose him. I reclaimed me.